Hi everyone, Amy here with amyswares, and today I'm going to play with some new crafty goodies that I got for Christmas. Now to start, I have this thank you set and coordinating dies from Trinity Stamps. I love how it has so many different sizes of thanks, and then you can have the dies to cut it out with the shadows. And I also have these Wow glitter embossing powders. There's 4 that I received, and they're all kind of golds and silvers and copper colored. And I'm just going to start by opening this stamp set and using some clear embossing sticky ink to kind of emboss various thank yous onto these little scraps of cardstock that I have here. So I'm just loading it into my mini Misty, and I make a selection of some of the bigger thanks that are on the stamp set. I am going back and forth with the coordinating die to make sure that those are ones that have the coordinating die, because I do want to cut these all out. So I'm just kind of futzing with this and figuring out which ones I can fit on this little scrap of cardstock, and I was able to fit 3 different ones into this limited space, so I'm just kind of moving that around. And then in a moment you'll see I'm going to bring in my embossing tool from the Rabbit Hole Designs, and this is kind of a newer tool to me. I did used to use the embossing bags, which work fine, but they tend to drop a lot of powder down and make a lot of mess. So I was excited to get this embossing tool because you just kind of prime it and then use this neat brush, and it lays down just a very light coating of that embossing powder. And what that does is it prevents the embossing powder from sticking where you don't want it to. So it kind of makes it so it only sticks to the stamping itself with the sticky embossing ink. So I'm just going to stamp this a couple times. The Misty's holding it in the same place for me so I can get nice even coverage with this. And I'm using my press tool from Tailored Expressions to kind of apply even pressure and put that down onto the cardstock. And I did choose the silver one from the set, and I'm just using a scrap piece of paper, and I'm using that to catch all the extra embossing powder. Now this looks like glitter, but I assure you it's not just glitter. It does have embossing powder in it as well. And so I'm just carefully coating that a couple times, and then I'll use that scrap piece of paper just to get the rest back into the jar and close it up and put it away before I accidentally knock it over and spill it all over the place. I'm sure we've all done that, right? So here's another new tool that I got for Christmas. I asked for this dual setting Wow embossing gun. So it does have a lower heat and a higher heat setting, and you can see I'm actually starting from the back. And the reason I'm doing that in this case is because it's glitter. So I've found that anytime I use an embossing powder that has any glitter in it, I like to do it this way so that the heat tool doesn't blow the glitter right off the page. So if I find that if I heat it from the back side, then it kind of melts the embossing powder enough and hangs onto the glitter rather than starting right on the top. So once I got it melted for the most part, then I felt comfortable going to the top and finishing off the job. So that's just a little trick. If you're going to emboss with glitter embossing or embossing powder that has even a little bit of glitter in it, I would recommend starting it from the back side just so you don't launch that glitter right off your page. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I have my embossing tool, and I have a little brown piece of cardstock, and I'm thinking I want to do the copper one for this little grouping of thank yous. So I wasn't sure at first if it was going to stand off the page enough, and it doesn't look like it's going to a whole lot, but once I cook it, it did have enough definition, and once the light hits it, it's definitely discernible. So very pretty. Same thing, I'm going to load this back into the jar and get that out of the way before I start cooking it with the heat tool. And I do have it on the higher of the 2 settings. This time I got smart and grabbed some craft tweezers because I was starting to burn my hands on the last go round. So I'm using some tweezers here to hold the paper so that I don't burn my fingers. You could also use a clothespin. I learned that from Kathy Zilski, but isn't it magic watching it melt? It's so fun. It's the best thing about embossing, right? Just watching the magic. But anyway, you can see when the light hits it, it definitely stands out off the background. So just finishing cooking the top of that, and then those are ready to go. And then I open up the coordinating dies. I couldn't find my little wire snips at first, but then I found that the way they're constructed, it wasn't really easy to get in there with a wire snip anyway. So I just kind of wiggled them around and twisted them on themselves, and then I was able to get them separated without the wire snips. But some of them definitely, die sets, you need wire snips in order to get them all separated, and that's always convenient too, to have the wire snips, because then you can get the little ends off of them, the little connector pieces, so that doesn't leave, you know, unnecessary imprints in your cardstock. But basically I'm just pulling out the ones that I used to emboss, and pulled out the center pieces because I'm just basically using the shadow portions. These sets are super cool because they have the inside and the outside, so you could do, you know, stamp it and cut the thank you out flush with the design, or you could use a different color cardstock and then do a shadow layer and, you know, black or white or whatever. So possibilities are endless, and this is a really versatile stamp and die set that I'm happy to have in my crafty stash. So I'm just lining these up and using some low tack tape from scrapbook.com, and I'll link that as well below. But basically I ran these through my die cutting machine, and then look at that, perfect little die cuts ready to go to put on future cards here. This one I was struggling with a little bit because I was really stuck down. But this is a low tack temporary tape, so it does work great. And then here's the best part. This is my sentiment book, so I have a lot of die cuts and sentiments ready to go, and I'm just gonna load these up in my little baseball card protector sheet pockets, and then I'll have these to use for future cards. So I'll show you here. I have some other ones, you know, obviously loaded up in here ready to go. I got lots of different stamped in die cut, or embossed in die cut, or, you know, glitter cardstock, or just a pretty gold cardstock, or holographic. All sorts of options to choose from. So I hope you enjoyed this today. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. And if you're interested in any of the products that I use, then just expand the video description box below and scroll down, and you'll find the details there. So thank you so much for watching. I'll check you next time. Bye.